Hello everyone. So, you want to learn how to play Drifter? Well, you have come to the right place. Drifter is one of those heroes that's easy to pick up, but surprisingly deep once you start understanding all the different ways that you can play him. In this beginner's guide, I'm going to break down everything you need to know to get started and feel comfortable on this amazingly fun character. We'll be going over all of Drifter's abilities, what each ability upgrade does, and the value you get from each point you invest. I'll also explain which abilities you should prioritize leveling depending on the build you're playing and the situation you're in. On top of that, I'll be covering multiple Drifter builds, including some hybrid focused options and other popular playstyles, so you can find the one that best fits how you like to play. And finally, I'll share some practical tips and tricks that will help you avoid common mistakes and get more impact in your games right away. One thing I would like to mention before we begin, guys, this is primarily a beginner's guide. This goal is to help newer and intermediate players understand fundamentals of Drifter and start winning more games with him. I won't be diving too deep into advanced mechanics, niche tech, or high-level optimization in this video. That said, if you'd like to see more advanced Drifter guide after this one, let me know in the comments below. If enough people are interested, I'd be happy to make one. Now, with that out of the way, let's get started and jump right into his abilities. Let's start with Drifter's first ability called Rend. Rend is a cone ship damaging ability with a maximum range of 16 meters. After pressing the ability, there's a short windup before it activates, and it damages all enemies caught within the cone. The most important part of Rend is its close range interaction. If an enemy is within 8 meters of Drifter, when Rend hits, they also take bonus melee damage. Because of this, Rend is at its strongest when you're fighting up close. Now, let's talk about Rend's upgrades. The 1-point upgrade is very simple. Rend gains 40 additional base damage. This affects the ability itself, so it doesn't matter whether you're hitting from close range or max range. It's a nice early game damage increase that helps with trading in lane. The 2-point upgrade reduces Rend's cooldown by 2 seconds. This lets you use the ability much more frequently and making it stronger for lane trades, skirmishes, and longer teamfights. Now moving on to the 5-point upgrade, which is the last upgrade, and it enhances the close range effect. Instead of dealing bonus melee damage, Rend now deals heavy melee damage and silence enemies for 2.3 seconds if they're hit within the 8 meters. This is a very strong upgrade, but it's mainly worth prioritizing in aggressive close range builds where you're consistently fighting in melee range. It becomes even stronger when paired with items such as Spirit Snatch that helps you get more value out of the silence and close range pressure. So the next ability is called Stalker's Mark. Stalker's Mark is a single target skillshot that stops on the first enemy hit. This means that it cannot pass through troopers or other units to reach its target. When it connects, it applies a damage over time effect that deals spirit damage based on the target's current health over a duration of 5 seconds. Because the damage is based on current health, the effect is strongest when used on healthier targets. The unique part of this ability is its recast. When an enemy is marked, you can reactivate the ability to instantly teleport directly behind them. This teleport can only be used once per cast of Stalker's Mark, but using it does not remove the mark or end the damage over time effect early. The target will continue taking damage for the full duration, even after you've teleported behind them. Now for the upgrades. And honestly, this is where Stalker's Mark starts becoming one of Drifter's strongest abilities. The 1-point upgrade causes marked targets to suffer 8% reduced bullet resistance. It's a simple but effective damage increase that helps both you and your team deal more damage to your target. The 2-point upgrade reduces the cooldown by 8 seconds, and it increases the duration by 3 seconds, bringing the total duration from 5 seconds up to 8 seconds. This essentially means more uptime on the mark, which is more damage over time, and more opportunities to actually use the teleport before the effect expires, catching your enemies off guard. Finally, the 5-point upgrade, the last upgrade, is incredibly powerful. It adds an additional 2% current health damage to the bleed and applies a 40% healing reduction to the target. This makes it extremely effective against heroes that rely on healing and sustain, such as Victor, Lady Geist, Abrams, and many others in this game. Overall, This is arguably Drifter's best ability and core of his kit. It provides things such as damage, utility, mobility, anti-heal, and strong scaling all in a single ability, which is why you'll often see it being maxed out first in many Drifter builds. So, next up is Drifter's third ability, called the Bloodscent. This is Drifter's essentially passive ability. Bloodscent revolves around isolated enemies. Isolated heroes leave behind a visible trail, emit a heartbeat that can be heard from a distance of up to 20 meters, and can take increased damage from Drifter. By default, isolated enemies take 15% amplified damage. This ability is also a really great information tool. You can track isolated enemies through walls, detect invisible heroes, avoid incoming ganks by hearing nearby heartbeats, or hunt down enemy carries farming alone in the jungle. The other major part of Bloodscent is its permanent scaling. Whether an isolated hero dies near you, you gain 3% permanent weapon damage. Importantly, you do not need to secure the kill yourself. As long as the enemy was isolated and dies within range, you'll get the stack whether you assisted, got the kill, or were simply nearby. I want to make it very, very, very clear that they need to be isolated. Now, moving on to Bloodscent Upgrades. So the 1-point upgrade grants you 2 meters per second of movement speed when near isolated heroes, giving you a better chase and repositioning potential with this value point. And moving on to the 2-point upgrade, this is where the real value comes in from the ability. When an isolated hero dies nearby you, you heal for 18% of your missing health and restore 2 stamina. This is an incredibly efficient upgrade for only 2 points and can make a huge difference in extended fights, especially during those later stages of teamfighting. Finally, the 5-point upgrade, it increases the amplified damage from 15% to 27%, so you're gaining an extra 12% amplified damage on isolated heroes. While the extra damage is definitely nice, I generally consider this a low priority 5-point upgrade compared to other abilities such as Stalker's Mark. It's strong, but the value you gain from other max upgrades is usually much more noticeable. Finally, we have Drifter's last ability, his ultimate ability, Eternal Night. Eternal Night has a range of 100 meters and sends out a projectile that seeks the 2 closest enemy heroes. Once affected, enemies have their vision heavily restricted for 6.5 seconds, reducing their vision range to just 15 meters. Their minimap is also obscured, making it extremely difficult for them to gather information or coordinate with their team. On top of that, affected enemies are briefly revealed to you and are considered isolated for the entire duration, allowing you to fully benefit from Bloodscent's bonuses. Drifter also gains 2 meters per second of sprint speed while the ultimate is active. A very important thing to note is that Eternal Night can be counterspelled, with the item of course, and different abilities such as Apollo's Riposte can block the ultimate entirely if they time it correctly. So please do keep that in mind when you're ulting. So now moving on to the upgrades, the 1-point upgrade grants an additional 10 meters per second sprint speed, turning Drifter in an absolute missile when chasing targets. He becomes really fast. The 2-point upgrade reduces the ultimate cooldown by 45 seconds, which is a huge quality of life improvement and lets you look for picks much more frequently. Finally, the 5-point upgrade increases the duration by 2.5 seconds, bringing it from 6.5 seconds to 9 seconds. And it increases the maximum number of affected targets from 2 to 3. This is a very strong utility upgrade, especially in a larger team fight, since being able to isolate half the enemy team for 9 seconds can completely change how a fight will play out. So this is it for his abilities. Now I'm going to be discussing about different builds in Deadlock that you should go on Drifter. Now, obviously, if we go onto the main page of Browse Builds, we will see a lot of builds and it might get a little bit overwhelming as to what to pick. There are 3 main builds I would like to talk to you guys about today that are somewhat viable and, should be played. Now, out of the three builds, this one I'm gonna name the Spirit build. It's a little bit memey, right? Props to this creator. Not sure who this is. One TY3, yeah. This is a good build. This is played for spirits. However, I do not recommend playing this build. Why do I not really recommend playing this build? Because this is not really Drifter. This is not really Mouse 1 / Roamer playstyle. This is more of an off carry playstyle. And if we do not know what an off carry is just pretty much a carry, like a Mouse 1 carry, like a left click carry, except they don't left click more, they more spam abilities and kind of one shot with abilities. This is more of a Drifter build where you kind of one shot with abilities. Hence, I do not really recommend it for two big reasons. First and foremost, it is kind of difficult to execute because you kind of just throw out your Q, you throw out your Stalker's Mark, you throw out your first ability, and then what happens is you kind of one shot one person and then you kind of leave. You don't do much more after that, so I don't really recommend doing this build. On top of all of that, spirit scaling in this game currently, as of the current patch, is just not really good. Gun scaling is just so much better. Hence, I just recommend you guys play more of a gun-heavy playstyle rather than a spirit-heavy playstyle in order to carry your solo queue games. Alright, so now I would like to talk about the other build, and this is the build which probably most of you guys should be playing. It is the Devilish build. I'm sure everybody has heard about this build. This is a very, very popular build. And it is generally a really good build for people that are ranked around Archon 4 and below. The reason why is because this build has some clear weaknesses. However, they will not kind of like pop out until you hit like this Archon 5, Archon 6 rank, where you're gonna be start to play against actual players who have somewhat good mechanics and can punish you early on. This is kind of a greedy-ish build for Drifter, and on top of that, the biggest problem with this build is the skill order. It is a very greedy skill order. So essentially you can get punished really, really hard early on in the game for such a build. There's other big problems with the build that I personally don't agree on. However, in general, this build is pretty good. I will show you exactly what issues I think are with the build. So this is kind of the edit that I did with the build. So I essentially took away Hollow Point because, in my opinion, Hollow Point, aka this item, on Drifter is just really, really bad. I don't think this is a good item at all for Drifter. Reason being is that you actually utilize a lot of the times the weapon damage, due to the fact that Drifter likes to be in close fights constantly. Hence, he will get damaged a lot of the times, so you will actually be below the 65% HP threshold most of your fights. Hence, you actually do not utilize the 35% weapon damage and 9% bullet resistance that is being applied to the enemies a lot of the times. Hence, I don't like Hollow Point. On top of that, I swapped out Hollow Point essentially with Toxic Bullets. Why did I do this? The reason being is that a lot of champions or characters in this game, however you want to call it, have a lot of healing. Almost, I would say 80% of the cast has some form of healing, or that needs to be reduced. Hence, Toxic Bullets, especially paired with your maxed out second ability, Stalker's Mark, which applies at max rank 40% healing reduction, will pretty much make it so characters like Abrams, Billy, Lady Geist, Victor, and many more characters just don't heal. This essentially forces you to pretty much constantly kill them on cooldown, since they are not able to heal while fighting you. This would be more of a better build, more of a consistent build. Another thing about fleet footwork. that I would like to state. Why is this in if you like and optional? Reason being is that, fleet footwork, it essentially removes the movement speed penalty and while shooting, and it also increases your slide distance. So people think, a lot of people have this misconception that this is kind of like I will run fast with this item. So I will run fast, I will shoot quickly with this Swift Striker and Burst Fire, so it will be really cool. However, the big strength that comes from Fleet Footwork is the fact that you have infinite ammo. Because as you know, in Deadlock, when you slide and shoot at the same time, you have infinite ammo. So the Fleet Footwork is actually an item for you to have infinite ammo. However, I don't see this as useful in most games, because usually you just kill people with one clip of your weapon. Obviously, you still need to hit Stalker's mark, and most of the time you do finish them off with your one Rend. However, still, most of the time, as long as you play not perfect but well, you will not really benefit a lot of the time from this infinite bullets that Fleet Footwork essentially gives you. Now, also some other points to touch on is Fortitude can be swapped with things such as Dispel Magic or Counterspell if you really need it. Dispel Magic is for characters, as he has stated here. This is not my writing, this is Devilish's writing. Stuff like Doorman, Haze, Infernus, Lady Geist, all of these characters. You kind of counter them. You can dispel, for example, Dorman's Car, Infernus's Burn, Lady Geist's Suck actually does get dispelled, Seven's Stun. Also something like that you want to consider counterspell instead of Fortitude. Something, let's say, as Billy, as shown here, because you can just counter his chain pull. Something like Paige, because it's very easy to counter spell her ult, and yeah, things like that. So if you are Archon 4 and below, I recommend pretty much playing this Drifter build only. You don't really need to get into the hybrid playstyle that I will be mentioning last build for this video. However, do please keep in mind that you can still play this next build that I will be talking about. This is just a more consistent build in lower ranks, because you don't get punished for greedy building, if that makes sense. Okay, so for the last build that I think is good on Drifter, and in my opinion this is actually the best Drifter build right now, as the current patch, and you guys should be playing it on all ranks. This is a more consistent build on games where it's like Archon 6 and higher, so starting in Oracle. I recommend you swap to this build if you were playing the Devilish build that I mentioned a bit earlier. This is a way more better build. Why is this a better build in general? Because this is not as greedy as a Devilish build, since you will be maxing out year 2 and year 1. On top of that, the reason why this build is really good is because it capitalizes on Drifter's early game and makes him a mid-game monster. He deals a lot, and I mean a lot of damage with this build, especially in the mid-game. And then towards the late game, you can transition into just a normal standard mouse 1 carry. Just like in the Devilish build, for some reason, you become essentially a hyper carry later on in the game. So yeah, it's really good. So why is this build really good? Essentially because it is going for more of you are still a mouse 1, but you are a weird kind of mouse 1. You're not a traditional mouse 1, for example, like 7 or Venator, where you're just going from camps. You essentially go around and fight people, and in between you collect boxes, and you also take farm, such as the medium camps and easy camps, because you pretty much one-shot them. So essentially, this build makes it so you debuff the enemies really hard in the early to mid game because of things such as Stalker, Hunter's Mark, Spirit Snatch, Bullet Resist, Shredder. Um, Realistically speaking, in an actual game, if you want to capitalize off the most damage you can potentially do, the best way for you to build is like this. I will show you right now. It's essentially going like this. So you will be building essentially melee lifesteal, spirit lifesteal, Stalker into Trophy Collector, and then getting your 4.8k damage spike. This would technically be the best way for the most damage, especially on your Rend. Because essentially what this build does, as we can see here, it goes for the first 3 ability points go into your Rend, because you want to constantly trade with your one, and also since you want to trade with your one, you want it to be on lower cooldown and it does more damage. Then you want to max out your Mark. Why? As I mentioned earlier in the video, Mark does a lot of damage, a lot of debuffing, and this build, especially in the mid game, focuses a lot on debuffing the enemies. So this is very good. They would genuinely have you have so much resist shred in this build that they just melt, like anybody melts. I promise you, with this build you will literally one-shot people like Abrams, Lady Geist, all these like very tanky heroes. You will genuinely just destroy. They cannot do anything, they will just look at you crying. So yes, this is so yeah, as you can see here, after that you put some points into your Bloodscent. Again, having those two, the second power up is very useful. Why? Because as I explained earlier, it heals you of your missing HP and also gives you stamina bars. So since you're constantly fighting, this is obviously good because you're gonna get heals in fights, stamina bars in fights. Lets you run around, just wreck everybody in the face. Another thing I would like to say though about this build, the one thing I don't like about this, but this is the one thing I don't like, it is essentially the weighted shots. In my opinion, this is just not good on Drifter. I don't think Drifter likes buying weighted shots. Slowing bullets is fine, but I don't think this is very good, because especially if you're slot locked, and if you want to replace a gun item, this is the first gun item you will actually let go of. So I personally don't like upgrading it to weighted shots. You can if you really like it, but in my opinion, don't do it. It is just not worth it. I really dislike especially the stamina recovery, and the movement speed aspect is not too bad because he offsets it with his Bloodscent and his ultimate. However, still I just don't recommend going this. However, with this build, this is the build that you want to run every single time, especially if you're Archon 5 and above. Please do run this build. Even if you are below this rank, if you're starting off as Drifter, you know, you're an Alchemist or whatever, I recommend first playing with the Devilish build a couple of times, just so you kind of get used to how to play Drifter, and then swap to this build. This build will grant you way more wins in the long run, especially as you start climbing and face more mechanically advanced players. If you guys would like me to specify and go over every single item as to why it's actually really good, please do mark it in the comments. However, I don't want to make this video too long and too complicated, especially for new viewers. So yeah. Alright, so the first tip that I would like to tell you guys, since as I mentioned earlier in the video, Rend is most effective when you are close range due to the extra melee damage. So what you can actually do with Rend, since it has a slight delay, you can actually dash slide and cast Rend at the same time. So this will look like this. Now, the reason why this is good, this closes the gap between the person. It essentially kind of scares them in a way, but it also will apply the extra melee damage and it will sometimes, against better players, will actually sometimes force a parry. So you can force a parry and essentially do extra damage with this trick.
Take your drugs.
So for tip number 2, this is essentially for your Stalker's Mark. Make sure that after you Stalker's Mark, actually no matter where you look, you will always TP exactly behind them and look exactly behind them. What does that mean? Is that you should, when you TP, always sneak in a light melee. This will add on a lot of extra damage to your combo and grant you extra kills. So what you can do most of the time is after you ambush them, you light melee into instant rend. This is essentially your like bread and butter combo. So make sure again to apply your mark, kind of like run away to let them, think that you are gone. Then you TP, light melee, and insta rend. So alright, so for tip number 3, this is essentially when you're gonna go gank. So let's say you're playing mid and you want to go gank right lane. Before you gank right lane, make sure to pop your ult every single time when you gank. Why is that a big thing? Because first and foremost, you essentially don't allow the 2 enemy laners on the right to see, but also, even if they stack up next to each other, even if one of them dies, since they're counted as isolated in your ultimate, you will always get a passive stack. This is incredibly important for Drifter Snowball, because even if you gank and you don't get even a single stack, even if both of them die because they weren't isolated, it will be really, really bad, because it will essentially make your snowball worse as the game goes on. So make sure to always first ult before you actually go and fight, and hey, go get your stacks. So for tip number 4, this is actually another rend trick. So for your rend is actually can be applied, casted downwards. So you can literally cast it exactly downwards and it will actually hit everybody. So in lane, a lot of the time, what you can do, if there is an opponent, let's say right here you're fighting, and you say let's say you get on top of bridge, you can actually Q them while under them. So keep that in mind, because some people don't actually utilize the fact that you can literally aim it in all directions. So keep this in mind, so you can do cool tricks like this, which confuses your opponents and also makes you harder to hit as well. So try practicing this at the range or something like that, where you can just wall bounce and essentially rend them. So this is for tip number 5. This is a more advanced trick. This is actually for the mid boss. If you didn't know, you cannot mark buffs with Drifter Mark, but you can actually mark the Rejuvenator with Drifter Mark while it's coming down. So a cool thing that you can do is that when the Rejuve is going to be falling down, you mark it, and what happens next is, right before they're going to heavy melee to secure it, you TP and parry. This will essentially bait the enemy team into parrying you, not getting a single Rejuve, and then you can heavy melee twice and get your team at least 2 Rejuves. So yeah, keep this in mind, that Rejuve is markable, but buffs are not markable. Okay, and lastly for this video, I would like to first state some characters that you kind of just want to play against, and some characters that you kind of want to avoid unless you're very strong enough to actually kill them in your game. So the characters that you want to play against, because you can easily kill them since you have a lot of damage, is characters like Vindicta, Rem, Paige, GT. All these characters have pretty decently low health pools, and you can easily, just one-shot them. Obviously, you can be like, oh yeah, well, Vindicta flies, it's hard to reach her. If you hit your Stalker's Mark, trust me, she just evaporates. And these characters are pretty low on HP pools, and you can kill them pretty easily. These are like, these are like fresh meat, if that makes sense. Now, characters that I would stay away from and try to, avoid them unless you are very ahead on souls and you're snowballing and you have enough damage to kill them. It's this amazing character designs. So Silver, I don't need to state why. If she gets her wolf form, especially in the mid game, even though, let's say you're playing the strong mid game build, yeah, she will just destroy you in wolf form, run away from her. Shiv, I will not speak on this creature. Tank that does 1,000,000 damage, hard to kill, very mobile. So yeah, try to not fight them, especially in tight corridors, because he will 1v1 you. Against a good unicorn lady, not only will she do a lot of spirit damage into you, and it's kind of hard to retaliate, but also she will just jump away while wall jumping, so she's hard to catch. Even if you hit your Stalker's mark, still difficult to kill. This guy CCs you to oblivion. Nothing you can literally do against this guy. Devil's creation, and no, I am not a hotel enjoyer. This character, it's a little bit weird. It's like he is kind of in the middle. I was debating on putting him here, but the thing about Bebop is that if he goes the gun build, he can kind of perma-CC you, and Drifter is very, very susceptible to getting CC'd, because he doesn't really have any dashing crazy abilities such as like Shiv or Celeste's jumps or, you know, Dorman's like crazy mobility. So do be careful of Bebop. Make sure he wastes his hook on your teammate or missed his hook in general. That's when you can actually go and fight him. So yeah, this will be it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I will make sure to answer them. And yeah, thanks for watching the video. Have a good day.